on Transfer of Property Act. Today we will discuss on some important provisions of the Transfer of Property Act such as section 40, 41 and 42. What section 40? Section 40 provides when there is a covenant restricting the use of a particular land, whether that can be enforced against a subsequent transferee, or where there is a covenant which is annexed to the ownership of the land, whether such covenant can be enforced against the subsequent transferee. This section 40, sometimes it is difficult to understand the provisions of section 40 of the Transfer of Property Act. What it provides: burden of obligation, imposing restriction on use of land. What he says? Where for the more beneficial enjoyment of his own immovable property. This section 40 is applicable only in respect of immovable property. When for more beneficial use of one's immovable property, a third person has independently of any interest. A third party has independently of any interest in the immovable property of another, or of any easement thereon, a right to restrain the enjoyment in a particular manner of the latter property. This section 40 consists of two parts. First thing, if a person has independently of an interest in the immovable property another for more beneficial enjoyment of his property, or a person has an easement right on the property of another, or a person, third person, has a right to restrain the enjoyment of the property in a particular manner, then this part 1 provides that whether that can be enforced against the subsequent transferee. This is popularly known as a restrictive covenant. What is covenant? Covenant means an agreement in writing. An agreement in writing, that we say covenant or covenant. Such a agreement may be made between a third party in respect of a particular land. For an example, X has a big piece of land. His house is in the middle of that land. X sold a part of that land which is by the side of the public road to Y. When he sold that land, X put a condition in the document or in that contract that Y will not construct any house so as to prevent X to approach the main road. So here this covenant is in respect of use of that land. As per section 11 of the Transfer of Property Act, when a property is transferred, absolutely, then there may be a covenant that restricting the transferee, if in a particular manner, if that use is necessary for beneficial enjoyment of the immovable property of the transferor. So this is called restrictive covenant. What is that restrictive? Suppose X, again I give that example, X has a big piece of land, his house is situated on the middle of portion of that land, and X sold a part of that land to Y, which is adjacent to the public road, and in that document there is a covenant. Covenant means an agreement, a condition, a stipulation that Y cannot bring or build a house so as to prevent the right of way of X to approach the public road. So this is a restrictive covenant. What that restrictive covenant? That means by such agreement, Y was restricted to use that land in a particular manner. So it is called restrictive covenant. Similarly, there may be an easement right. What is easement right? Easement right is a right is available on the immovable property of the another for beneficial enjoyment of another piece of immovable property. This is called easement right. Suppose my house is by the side of the road, but the portion of the land through which I approach the main road, that belongs to another person. So I have no other way. So my right of way on the land of another is called as easement right. Similar right to air, getting air, light. These are all easement right, which right is used for the beneficial enjoyment of one's property on the immovable property of another. Suppose there is an easement right. Then, or there is a condition that a third party has entered an agreement with the owner, with a person, with the transferee, that he will be restrained the enjoyment of that land in a particular manner. So in such case, if that property, that land is transferred, by the person, transferee, to another person, whether the original transferor can enforce that right against the subsequent transferee. This is in section 40. Section 40 provides when for more beneficial enjoyment of one's immovable property, a third person has independently of any interest in the immovable property of another or of any easement thereon for beneficial enjoyment of one's property, a third person as an easement right on the property of another, or a third person is entitled, has a right to restrain the enjoyment in a particular manner of that property, then such a right can be enforced against whom? Against a transferee with notice thereof, or a gratuitous transferee of the property affected thereby. So such right can be enforced only against the transferee who had notice of such restrictive covenant. When he became the transferee, he had notice of such restrictive covenant. That restrictive covenant can be enforced against him or against a gratuitous transferee, gratuitous without consideration. If somebody has become transferee, those restrictive covenants, that means to use that particular land in a particular manner, that can be enforced against the gratuitous transferee or against the transferee who had notice of it, but not against a transferee for consideration and without notice of the right or obligation. But if the subsequent transferee had become transferee for consideration without notice of it, then such restrictive covenant cannot be enforced against that transferee or nor against such property in his hands. So here, this is called restrictive covenant. The other covenant is called obligation annexed to ownership, but not amounting to interest or easement. So this is called positive covenant. This covenant means an agreement in writing. This covenant can be enforced. Where? Positive covenant, when there is an obligation annexed to the ownership of a immovable property. So you should understand the difference between restrictive covenant and positive covenant. In case of positive covenant, this covenant, that is agreement in writing, is annexed to the ownership of a whole property, not in enjoyment of the property. Suppose X had previously agreed to sell a piece of land to Y and had entered an agreement. Thereafter X sold that land to Z. So in such case, Y was entitled to enforce to get a decree for specific purpose of contract of sale. But without selling that property to Y, X sold that property to Z. If Z had notice of it and notice of the earlier agreement, then Y or his legal representative can file a suit for specific performance of contract against Y. This is called positive that is covenant. That is positive covenant and restrictive covenant. In case of restrictive covenant, there is a restriction in use of the land. In case of positive covenant, as per part 2, that covenant annexed to the ownership of the land. That is section 40. Sometimes it is very difficult to understand the provisions in section 40. Because the wordings are in such a manner, if you read it again and again, it will also be difficult for you to understand the language of used in this section correctly. What it says, section 40 provides that where there is a restrictive covenant or a positive covenant, whether that covenant, the condition of that agreement, which can be enforced against a third transferee, against a transferee who becomes the transferee without notice or with notice. So what section 40 says? Section 40, if you go through the language of this section, it consists of two parts. First part relates to restrictive covenant and second part relates to positive covenant. What do you mean by covenant? Covenant means an agreement in writing. In agreement in writing, we say it is a covenant. So when a covenant agreement in writing is in relation to use or enjoyment of a particular land in a particular manner, that will be treated as restrictive covenant. It may be in negative form or it may be positive sentence. Doesn't matter. So what it says, so that is called this restrictive covenant. When there is an agreement which is not in respect of use of the particular land, use of the land in a particular manner, but there is some restriction, regarding a restriction which is an obligation to be performed by the owner of that land, that is called positive covenant. That doesn't run along with the land, that runs with the owner. So what it says, you go through the language of this section, where for the more beneficial enjoyment of his own immovable property. Suppose X is the owner of a particular immovable property. He has a third person has independently of an interest. That means third person means the owner. Here has an interest in the immovable property of another, has interest in the immovable property of another, or of an easement thereupon. That third person has an easement right on the property of another, or right to restrain the enjoyment in a particular manner of the latter property. That means third person has a right to restrain the enjoyment of that property in a particular manner, or of obligation annexed to ownership but not amounting to interest or easement. Second part provides, where a third person is entitled to the benefit and obligation arising out of contract. Only an obligation. The second part arises only by virtue of a contract. There is obligation, a person is entitled for the benefit and obligation arising out of a contract and annexed to the ownership. Here the obligation annexed to the ownership, they are in the previous this part 1, that is in respect of the covenant is in respect of the enjoyment of the property. but not amount to an interest therein. In second para that obligation annexed to the ownership, though no, but does not, but the person has no interest in that property or easement thereon. But person has no easement right. Such right or obligation. Such right or obligation means both the rights, that is restrictive covenant as well as positive covenant. That is restrictive covenant to use the land in a particular manner, and the second part, the obligation of the which is annexed to the ownership property may be enforced against a transferee with notice thereof. That means third person can enforce such right against the transferee who has notice thereof, or a gratuitous transferee of the property affected thereby. So gratuitous transfer property against him, such a covenant can be enforced, but not against a transferee for consideration. This obligation, either obligation in, regarding annexed to the ownership of the property, or the restrictive covenant in use of this immovable property cannot be enforced against the transferee who had become the transferee for consideration and without notice of the right of obligation, nor against such property in his hand. Even that can be enforced against the property in his land. If you go through the illustration is with reference to the second part of the section. What it says? That is obligation annexed to the ownership of the property. What it says? A contract to sell Sultanpur to B. Sultanpur, a piece of land, A had contracted to sell that land to B. While the contract is still in force, that means sale has not been completed. Simply he has made a contract for sale of the land. While the contract is still, contract to sale is that, where the contract is still in force, he sells Sultanpur to C. Though the sale has not been effected, simply he had taken advance for sale, but thereafter he sold that property to C, who has notice of the contract. If C had notice of the earlier contract, that means A had contract to sell, he had entered a contract to sell Sultanpur to B, then B may enforce the contract against C to the same extent as against A. So B may enforce that contract as against same extent as against A. So here this is positive contract. So here this is called prior agreement. So here this is in nutshell the provisions of section 40. It is sometimes difficult on your part, so to understand the section correctly. So again, at the cost of repetition, I must clarify you what is restrictive covenant. Restrictive covenant connotes provision in a deed limiting the use of the property and prohibiting certain uses. In a document, there is a condition, there is a stipulation that a particular land will be used in a particular manner. In context of property law, term describes contract between grantor and grantee which restricts the grantee's use and occupancy of land. So that is, provision is there in section 11. When property is alienated for beneficial use of one's property, that will, if a lease is there, that can be done, a restrictive use can be made. So that is restrictive covenant. Now second part is called, obligation. The second part consists of obligation arising out of a contract. So this never arises out of easement. Only an obligation annexed to the ownership of the property arising out of a contract. That means the best example is somebody had entered a contract to sell that land to another, and thereafter, without completing the sale, he sold that piece of land to a third party. If third party had notice of such earlier contract to sell, then the disappointed purchaser, he can file a suit against the subsequent transferee for specific performance contract of, for a decree of specific performance of a contract of sale. So this is very important. So this so here what it says, that is, which performance could be enforced. The farmer must hold the property for the benefit of the latter to the extent necessary to give effect to the contract. That means here in case when a person with notice of it, that notice of the fact that earlier there was a contract to sell that land by the owner, he purchased that, he became the transferee, then he holds that property on behalf of the original owner. So in such case, property for the benefit of the latter to the extent necessary, that means for the benefit of the person who was required to get some obligation from the owner of that land. This is called positive covenant, restrictive covenant and positive covenant. Probably you are clear, you will be clear now. Now let us come to section 41. It is another section which is very important, and sometimes you get a question, who is an ostensible owner? What will be the effect of a transfer by an ostensible owner? What is ostensible? Ostensible means apparent owner, but he is not the real owner. A person is an ostensible owner who is apparently, who appears to be the owner, but he is not the real owner. The example, best example is a person who is the owner as a benamidar. Suppose a husband purchases property in the name of the wife. So husband has paid the money, but the wife is, the document is of the particular land is in the name of the wife. Here the wife is the ostensible owner. So ostensible owner, you should understand what is the meaning of ostensible owner. So ostensible owner means apparent owner, apparent, but he is not the real owner. So indicia of ownership, what is all the apparently to outside it appears that he is the owner. So the requirements of this section, what section 41 says, you go through the language of the section 41, what it says, where with the consent, you should give importance on the word consent. There may be consent. Without consent, this section of the real owner, this section will not be applicable. What it says, where with the consent, that consent may be either express consent or implied consent of the person interested in the immovable property. A person interested, not your real owner, it is not there. Always a real owner is interested in the property. Where with the consent, express or implied, that consent is there, either express or implied consent of the persons interested in immovable property. A person is the ostensible owner of such property. So when a person becomes ostensible owner means apparently owner. Suppose I purchased a piece of land in the name of my son. I paid the entire consideration or the price of such sale from my own saving. So the person who paid the money, he should be treated as real owner. But as the land was purchased in the name of my son or my daughter or my wife, she or he will be ostensible owner. If with the consent, because I consented, that is expressly or impliedly, he became the ostensible owner. Where with the consent, express or implied, of the person interested in the immovable property. I am interested in that immovable property with my express consent or implied consent. A person is the ostensible owner of such property and transfer the same for consideration. The second requirement is that such transfer, the transfer must be made by the ostensible owner for consideration, for some money or for some benefit. So that is called consideration. What is consideration? Not price. Consideration may be anything. When such a transfer is made by the ostensible owner for consideration, the transfer shall not be voidable. What he said? Such transfer shall not be voidable. Because rule is that if a person is the real owner, he doesn't transfer. And the person who is the benamidar, if he transfer, the transfer will become void. So, but here section 41 says, if a person becomes the ostensible owner with the express or implied consent of the real owner, that means the person interested in that property, and transfer that property for consideration, then such transfer shall not be voidable on the ground. What are the ground? That the transfer was not authorized to make it. So only on the ground that transferor was not authorized to make it. I cannot file a suit. If I file a suit that my son was the benamidar, I was the real owner of that property, but he transferred it without my consent, without my authority, then such transfer be declared void. This section what provides? No, such a sale cannot be declared void. If a person becomes the ostensible owner means apparently owner. Apparently, to outside, it appears that he is the owner. If a person becomes the ostensible owner of a property with the express or implied consent of the person interested in the property. Interested in the property means the real owner, and he transfers that property for consideration, then such transfer without not evil intention must have ascertained that the transferor had. But here section 41 is very, very important provision. Sometimes you get a question, who is an ostensible owner? What will be the consequence of the transfer made by an ostensible owner? So section 41 you are trying to understand. If a person becomes the ostensible owner of a property, of immovable property, only it is so far as immovable property, with the express or implied consent of the person interested in, this is not applicable to movable property, interested in immovable property, transfer that property for consideration, then such a transfer cannot be declared void provided on that ground only. On what ground? For other grounds that can be declared. Suppose that other grounds may be voidable, that is free consent is not there. Okay, on that ground this transfer may be declared void. So, but only on the ground that the ostensible owner had not been authorized to make the transfer, on that ground such a transfer cannot be declared void, provided the transferee had made reasonable inquiry, had transferee after taking reasonable care. What is reasonable care? What a prudent man is expected to take care while purchasing a property. Ascertain, after taking reasonable care, had ascertained that the transferor had power to make the transferor. The ostensible owner had the power to, here ostensible owner, that is the transferor had power to make such transfer and has acted in good faith. So here this principle is applicable on the principle of equity. Rule lesson is based upon the doctrine of estoppel. It is also doctrine of, this is somehow depends, this principle, this section is also according to the doctrine of estoppel. Suppose I purchase a piece of land in the name of my son, made him to believe others, made an impression that in the public that he is the owner, he is the real owner. Then if he sells that land, and if a third party becomes the transferee for consideration, then I cannot deny that in that case that the person had no authority to transfer. This is also based on the doctrine of principle, the principle of estoppel. Estoppel is a rule of evidence. What is estoppel? You are aware? Yes, if a person by act, declaration or omission has made another to believe something, and if on that belief somebody has acted upon, then subsequently on a suit, he cannot deny the truth of that thing. So this is the principle of estoppel. So estoppel, the rule of estoppel is applicable here. So what it say? It is a principle of natural equity which must be universally applicable, that where a man allows another to hold himself out as the owner of an estate. If a person allows another to hold his property as if owner, and it appears to the public that he is the real owner, And if it disposes that property, then that manner is stored to question that transfer. So this is the famous case, the founding case in the subject is Ramkumar versus MC Queen. You go through the provision that may principles settled by the Privy Council in Ramkumar versus MC Queen. Here this ostensible owner, that the wife, they purchase, husband purchased certain land in the name of his wife. The wife became the ostensible owner. He transferred that property to a third party for consideration. And subsequently, the son of that man, in respect of whom a will had been made for that land, challenged that sale. Then that he was defeated in his suit was dismissed. This is a founding case in the subject is Ramkumar versus MC Queen. So now this is the ostensible owner, in nutshell the law. What are the ingredients of section 41? At the cost of repetition, I will say, first, the transferor is the ostensible owner. He is so by that is express or implied consent of the real owner. The transfer is for consideration. The transferee has acted in good faith, taking reasonable care to ascertain that the transferor had power to transfer. If all these four requirements are complied, then such a transfer cannot be declared as void. This principle of ostensible power will not be applicable so far as minor's property is concerned. Why? Because minor is a real owner. He cannot give any express or implied consent because consent is required. Person becoming ostensible owner with the express or implied consent of the person interested in the immovable property. So this principle is not applicable so far as minor's property is concerned. So this is in nutshell the provisions of section 41 of the Transfer of Property Act. Probably I think this you must have understood both the sections 40 and 41. These two sections are very important provisions. In section 43, we will discuss the doctrine of freeing the grant by estoppel. The doctrine of freeing the grant by estoppel. Let us conclude. Thank you all.